All right, thank you guys very much for coming tonight. This is the third of our workshops on home energy, or the Woodbridge Energy Challenge. I'm Lisa Connor, I'm chair of the Woodbridge Ad Hoc Energy Advisory Task Force, and Laura from the task force is also here. Thank you very much, Laura, for on today. We have Jen Parsons from United Illuminating here tonight to talk about your home heating and cooling solutions and some of the programs that are available through UI to finance these things. Also tonight we have Paul Weaver and Maud from New England Conservation Services, one of the vendors for home energy audits that the town has working with us as part of the Energy Challenge. The other is New England Smart Energy. They were not able to be here tonight. But again, thank you very much for coming. I hope you find it useful, and stay tuned. We also have a solar workshop coming up in a couple of minutes.
Great, well thank you very much. So good evening, everybody. My name is Jen Parsons, and I work for United Illuminating Electric Company in this area. And for those of you who might not know, UI also owns Southern Connecticut Gas and Connecticut Natural Gas. And we work in conjunction with the other utility in the state, Eversource, which is formerly Connecticut Light and Power and Yankee Gas. So I work at UI. I've been there for about a little over 2 years now, and I manage the residential HVAC and water heating replacement program, as well as the residential new construction program. And I'm all about every day trying to help people save money and energy when they're making a replacement in their home on a mechanical system or building a new house. So I work on behalf of the Energize Connecticut program, which is the state's program to help folks who are UI or Eversource Electric customers find ways in your home or your business place to save energy and in turn save money as well. It's a partnership between the utility companies as well as the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection in the state and the Clean Energy, I think now they're called the Green Bank, which is a financing agency that's based in Connecticut to help businesses and homes finance energy efficiency projects, as well as they offer incentives for solar projects. So I'm sure solar will be a topic that was mentioned is coming up at another seminar that you can come back and learn more about. So everybody here, you live in Woodbridge, you pay your electric bill to UI every month. On the back of the bill, if you flip it over, there's a bunch of different charges for, I don't know where lots of them are for, but one of them in particular goes to help fund the Energize Connecticut efficiency programs for residential customers to take advantage of. So that money, it's a very small amount on your bill every month, goes into a pool, and then the utilities disperse that money back to the public in the form of rebates and programs and incentives for energy efficiency upgrades, such as to-year HVAC, heating, cooling, and water heating systems. So that it's a state-mandated program that came into effect in 1998 on the electric side, and then the natural gas companies started participating in 2005. And the point of it is to help folks save energy, save money, and it helps the utility systems too, because if we just let people use as much energy as they possibly could, we'd have to keep building power plants and growing the natural gas supply. And so this helps the utilities keep the demand for energy at bay so that we have less blackouts and brownouts and can plan our electric usage better. So there's all sorts of different ways that this benefits you as residential homeowners, myself as a homeowner, or landlord, or tenant, or business person too. So has anybody here had a home energy assessment on your house through the Energize Connecticut program? All right, a couple people, awesome. So it's kind of, I like to think of it as a wonderful way to just evaluate where your house is in terms of energy use. In your home, heating, cooling, and water heating takes up the majority of the energy use in your house. But there's all sorts of other things that play into energy use. Lighting, appliances, just your behavior in general. So the home energy assessment is a really, really great way to kind of just figure out where your house is right now in terms of how you use energy and where you can find ways to improve. So it costs $99. So everybody who is a landlord, a tenant, or a homeowner in the town of Woodbridge and all of the UI and Eversource towns in the state can take advantage of the program. It costs $99. If you have a restricted income and meet income eligible guidelines, there is also an income eligible program that's very similar but doesn't have the same copay requirement. So it's $99 and you get a comprehensive look at where your house is. So lighting will be evaluated, your heating and cooling systems, water heating systems, want to make sure that those are functioning efficiently and safely. Insulation. So the envelope of your building, I think was a previous event that Woodbridge held here, is really crucial to keeping the heat in or the cooling in so that you're not wasting it through the exterior of your building, of your house. So they look at your windows and your insulation. They also look at air sealing because in addition to needing insulation around your house, it also can leak air unnecessarily, so they do air sealing type work to help reduce airflow, unnecessary airflow in and out of your house. And they also can look at water conservation. So shower heads for your showers, aerators for your faucets, there's all sorts of different ways that they can help reduce the amount of water that you use as well. So if anybody hasn't had one on your house yet, I highly recommend it. We have a representative here today that you're more than welcome to talk about it with, and hopefully you'll sign up for one. So I'm here today, hopefully everybody's here, to listen to me talk about your heating and your cooling and your water heating systems, because that is a tremendous amount of energy use in your house. And you might not think about it, but we rely on it every day, and you only kind of think about it when you get the bill in the mail and it's really high, or if your heating and water heating system breaks and you need to replace it right away. So I want you to kind of think about it, and I'm so glad that you're here because HVAC is crucial to all of our buildings. We need to have them heated and cooled so that we can live in them comfortably. And so I hope that I'll teach you a couple things to pay attention to tonight in your own home or your own business as well. So I wanted to start kind of with a high level overview about different types of heating systems that are out there so you can try to figure out what you have in your house. Because lots of times people say, oh, my furnace, but you might not actually have a furnace. So I'm just going to start by going over a couple of different types of heating systems, and you can figure out what you have in your own home. So the first type that I have here is a boiler. It can be heated either with natural gas, oil, or propane, and it's fed with baseboards. So if you have baseboards in your house that, usually along the walls, on the exterior walls of your house that provide the heat, it's being fed by a boiler. So water is being heated and distributed by the boiler throughout the baseboards, or you might have radiator type systems that would be more condensed little pack-like heating element that would be on your wall. That's a sign that you have a boiler. And a boiler has a couple different components to it. There's the actual boiler itself right here. There's a burner that burns whatever fuel you might use to heat your house. There's an exhaust pipe that goes out a chimney or might go out the side of your house. And then you have a bunch of circulator pumps, depending upon how big your house is and how many different areas the heat needs to get to. There's the circulator pumps will go to different zones in your house. And so, you can see by all the copper piping that is a signal that you have a boiler type heating system in your house. Does anybody think that they have that type? It's really, really really common in New England. About 50% of the state uses this type to heat their house. So the next one would be a furnace. If you have supply air vents, which are usually little, like they're typically in at the roof or what the ceiling of your house, you might have, and then you definitely should have some return air vents that so that supply air comes out and then it gets filtered back into a return. That's probably a return right there, and some supply vents in this building. So you'll have a furnace. There is a burner inside of it. It's usually not protruding out like the boiler was in the previous slide. You'll also have an exhaust flue vent that will either go up a chimney or it will go out the side of your house. And you have an air handler, which has a supply side and a return side. So there's the one duct system that's bringing the heat or the cool to your room, and then another air is cycling it back into the system again to be filtered and reused. So sometimes if you see this white pipe, I don't know if you can see it very well, that might be like an air conditioning type sign that you have air conditioning associated with your furnace. So some people have air conditioning, some people don't. So you might not see this as well. So for all furnaces have a fan, and that fan has, it's usually right around here. Find a really good picture of it. But you need to change the filter every 2 to 4 months is a really good idea to just make sure that you have healthy, clean air coming through the vents, because it's being recycled in your house, and people have dust and other things that might be in their air, so you want to make sure that you change your filter on a regular basis. So just kind of put a note on your calendar when the 2 to 4 months has gone by. Check it periodically to see how dirty it is, and you'll definitely be able to tell when it's time to get changed. So I highly recommend that. And so furnaces can be fed most often with natural gas, propane, or oil. Sometimes you'll have wood as a source. So does anybody think that they have a furnace type in their house? Awesome. Electric resistance. So this is a really popular form of heating, especially in the 70s and the 80s. It might look similar to the boiler that I described a couple slides ago, but what will be different is there will be a thermostat typically in every single room, or it will be right on the side of the baseboard. And so electric resistance heat is right now the most expensive and the least efficient way to heat your house. So there are other alternatives if you have this in place. Sometimes it's really common. It's very easy for an electrician to install. It's very common if you put like an addition on, or you're trying to heat a porch that you're turning into it was a 3-season and now it's a 4-season, because it's really easy to install that type of heat. So does anybody think that they have that in their house? You might have it in one room, or you might have it in the whole thing. Another one, this one's sometimes it might be a little bit harder to know if you have it or not, but a heat pump. You might have a heat pump. Lots of condo developments put in heat pumps in the 80s. They were really popular, and they're still popular today for sure. So with a heat pump, there's a couple different types. There's either ducted versions or there's ductless versions. So ductless is kind of the one on the bottom. You'll have an outdoor compressor right here. It's usually pretty skinny and not too big. And it'll be up against the side of your house, and you'll have an indoor unit, which is right up here. So it's not a very big thing that attaches to your wall. So that's called a ductless heat pump, and that's a really great alternative for the folks that have electric resistance heat, because it's really easy to retrofit in your type of house situation. So if you have electric resistance and you're looking for an alternative way to heat, a ductless heat pump is really easy, because you don't have to cut in any duct work. which can be pricey and invasive too, because you have to cut through sheetrock in your house. And so that would be this option along the bottom. So we call this an outdoor compressor, and then this is an indoor air handling unit. And the nice thing about heat pumps is that they generally, most all of them, do heating and they do cooling. So they're a really nice 2-in-1 type unit. At the top, the typical cooling system has, you might see this on the side of your house. If you have a furnace and you have ductwork running in your house, you might also have central air conditioning, and you would see this outdoor compressor. It's generally more of like a taller rectangular square shape, and it would be on the outside of your house. Then you'll also have some sort of indoor air handling unit similar to the furnace slide that I showed you a couple slides ago. But instead of using natural gas or propane or one of those types of fuels, these use electricity. Does anybody think they have a ductless heat pump or a heat pump in their house? Awesome.
Are you taking, excuse me, are you taking questions later?
I can take them now if you have any.
No, I was just wondering if you switched to that, is it just as expensive as electric heat, or does it end up being cheaper?
Oh, that's a really great question. So it can most definitely be a lot less expensive for you, in the range of 20 to 60% energy savings. It really is contingent upon having an installer that installs it correctly and your operation of the unit. So the installer part, you want to make sure that you have, I'm going to go over how to select a contractor later. You just want to make sure that they're insured, they have installed these units before. Maybe you can get some customer referrals that you could talk to make sure that they like the install, because it's really crucial that they place it in the right area in your house, that they connect the indoor and the outdoor pieces properly, they size it the right way. So you really want to make sure that they do it the right way. And then when you use the house, if you don't have one of those indoor air handling units in every one of your rooms, you want to put them in the rooms that you spend the most time in, and you're going to want to shut the doors of the rooms that you don't really use that much, or that don't have the unit, because you don't want the heat to go into those rooms. So if you have a good contractor, they'll teach you how to use it, how to set the temperature, and let it be so that you can maximize it. But we did studies at the utility company, and we found that the savings are generally in the 40 to 60% range. Sometimes they were in the less range if it wasn't being operated and installed the right way. Yeah. That's a really wonderful question. So back in the 80s, when heat pump technology started coming into play in Connecticut and New England in general, the equipment was not very good. So over the past, just in the last 10 years alone, the quality of the equipment is just skyrocketed. So Europe, basically all of Europe, lots of places in China and Japan, they only use ductless heat pumps to heat and cool their spaces. And Vermont, tons of people in Vermont use ductless heat pumps, and they're a heck of a lot colder up there than they are down here. So it used to be, in the 80s, it was horrible and it didn't work in our climate, but now, just in the past 10 years, it really, really works well in our climate. Geothermal, does anybody, you probably would know if you had this in your house, if you have a geothermal system. So there's a couple different types of geothermal. It is the most efficient way to heat your house. Sometimes it tends to have more of a price tag to it, but it's a really wonderfully efficient way to heat your house. Lots of new houses that are being built in my program put geothermal in because it's a great way to have as go towards a zero energy type house and be really, really efficient. So I do see a lot of geosystems being installed in Connecticut, for sure. And I think I just had one in Woodbridge come across my plate to get a rebate the other day.
Before you leave that subject, does anyone know, like, what permits are required in Woodbridge to do that kind of a thing? Especially if you are to discharge a little bit of the water as it heats up or cools, or...
Yeah, I
Does
don't
anybody-
know.
Is a permit required to drill a well for domestic water? I don't know that either.
You
Yeah.
probably have to have a permit for a well. But as far as the discharge of any of the, like you were saying,
Yeah.
anything extra, I don't believe it, you should discharge it into your septic.
It's a
I
closed
believe
system.
A separate, like a dry well system. Because I don't know how that would really affect your septic system.
It's a closed system, like the radiator in your car.
Well, it could be, or it could be. I've seen systems where they do discharge some of the water depending on what temperature they might want to maintain it in the well. For instance, if it's very hot weather and you run in this thing for a couple of months maybe, and the temperature of the ground is heating up, maybe you want to get rid of some water, so some cool water will come in.
And you have to check with Quinnipiac Health District, see what they say, you know, the health authority there. It should be a closed system. I thought it was a closed system.
Yeah, there's a few different types of geothermal systems that are out there, and I definitely am not a geo expert, unfortunately, so I can't get into all of the engineering and behind the system. There are a lot of great geo installers in the state. There's an organization called CT Geo, and it's a group of passionate geo installers that know what they're doing. So I know that Woodbridge has allowed geo installs because I've had projects come across my desk. I'm not familiar with the discharge scenario, and I think there's a couple different ways that you can drill the wells. You can either go vertically, you can go through a pond, you can kind of do this slinky loop type system, which is not as deep in the ground, or you can do a horizontal loop, which is not quite deep in the ground. So this one goes, the vertical one, obviously by its name, goes more vertically down, and then the horizontal loop takes up more ground space. So all of them are extracting heat from the earth in the wintertime, because the core of our earth stays at around 55 degrees once you get down below the surface all the time. So, 55 degrees, if you're already pulling up 55 degrees into your house, that's basically free heat. You just have to pay a little bit more to bump it up to 68 or 72, whatever you want to keep your house at. And then in the reverse, in the summertime, it's 55 degrees as well. So you can pull the heat out of your house and into the ground, and then it's just a great way to cool your house. So if you're interested in this for your home, if you go on Energize CT's website, I'll give that at the end. I have it in the slide deck too. I printed out some copies. That we have a listing of geo contractors to contact, or you could go to Google or research CT Geo Connecticut Geothermal Association, and they have so much information on the technology, because it's pretty cool. And it's definitely more advanced than your typical boiler type, but it's a lot more efficient, and it's really great form for the environment too.
You still have to heat the water that comes out at 55.
Yep.
But you're just not heating as much.
Yeah, so you only have to go up whatever 15 degrees with electricity.
Simple explanation would be, in your refrigerator is 30-something degrees. You're taking heat out of your refrigerator and putting it into the condenser, and you feel it blowing out of the back underneath.
Yeah.
And that's the same thing going on here.
Yep.
Okay.
And then the opposite in the other season. Yeah, so that's exactly correct, sir. It's a great explanation. So it's a really great alternative if you'd like it for your house or you're building a new house. I definitely can recommend. It does use electricity, so you do still have an electric bill. Just to go back to it, you do still have an electric bill because you have to heat the water a little bit, and then you have to disperse the heat throughout your house, typically with ducts, like a furnace system. So there will be an air handler, and you will have ducts in your house to get the heating and the cooling to your rooms. So if you're in the market to replace your heating system, we at the utility company, we always try to get you to purchase Energy Star. Energy Star labeled equipment, they label all sorts of different things. And you might think like, oh, well, TVs, basically everything is Energy Star these days, which is a lot on the appliance side, like TVs and DVD players and that kind of stuff. Most of that equipment is Energy Star, but on the heating and cooling side, it's a different ball game. So you want to make sure that you're asking for Energy Star because they really are a step up against a lot of the products that are out there. So just keep the little blue logo that lots of people are familiar with. It's been around for a couple decades, so you probably have seen it. And so if you have a heat pump, when you're talking to your contractor, you want to make sure that you ask for Energy Star. And if you're putting in a ductless heat pump or you're putting in a ducted heat pump, you want to make sure that you ask for the highest HSPF that you can afford, which stands for the Heating Season Performance Factor, which is just a way to kind of rate the efficiency of the equipment. So typically, Energy Star has a minimum HSPF, and that is 8.2 for kind of a reference. So if you can get higher than 8.2, the higher that you can get, the better you are. I just wanted to kind of frame up some of the heating costs in the state, how they relate to one another. So electric resistance, like I mentioned earlier in the slide, per unit of heat tends to cost the most. That's why it's this far column. And then propane tends to be expensive as well. Kerosene, I don't know, anybody heat with kerosene anymore? Not that many people heat with that anymore. Oil, then wood, then a ductless heat pump, then a pellet stove, geothermal, and natural gas. So geothermal and natural gas, depending upon the price of natural gas, since it fluctuates, all of this fluctuates really depending upon your price of fuel. But on average, geothermal and natural gas tend to be the most efficient, and then ductless heat pumps are great, and electric resistance tends to be the most expensive fuel to heat your house with per unit of heat output that you get.
Are you going by the cost of the fuel or how efficient these systems are?
Both.
I see the propane is a gas also, a natural gas. Now, wouldn't it, the same furnace burn at the same efficiency?
Yeah, so we took average efficiency equipment and then plugged in the price of the fuel. So propane tends to be more expensive than natural gas. So if the price were to fluctuate, then it would be flopped. So it's all relative to the price of the fuel, really.
I had something here about propane. I think a lot of people get fooled because they see the cost of a gallon of propane compared to the cost of a gallon of oil. But propane has about, I'm going to guess, maybe a third fewer BTUs.
Yes.
So you can easily get fooled when you're buying propane that way.
Yes. So that's a really great point. So all fuel is rated in BTU output, which is a British thermal unit. I don't know who came up with that, but it's just a way to kind of relate the output of heat of different fuel types to each other. So propane has per 1 gallon will produce less BTUs of heat than a gallon of oil will. So you have to, I wish I had that conversion chart because I have a conversion chart, but there's conversion charts where you can figure out how many BTUs per quart of wood, per therm or CCF of natural gas, per gallon of oil, and you can kind of relate them to each other and figure out, what's the most costly or least costly depending upon the price of fuel at the time for the different ways to heat. So it's kind of confusing, and I wish I had put that slide in there. I apologize, but that's a really great point. That's why, you would see propane over here, because it would be, you get less heat from 1 BTU, from 1 gallon than you would from oils, making oil a little bit more affordable. Unless the price of oil is $8 and the price of propane is $2, then, that's a different story. So if you're interested, there's all sorts of conversion tools on the internet to figure out how many BTUs per gallon or therm or whatever of fuel. And there's really great cost calculator tools too. I don't have any links on here, but usually I go to Energy Star's website or the Department of Energy's website, and they have some conversion and energy calculator type tools, so you can figure out what it would cost for you if you're considering switching fuels or something like that. If you're in the market to replace your cooling system, which we've had a really, really long winter, but summer is coming, and so it's going to be hot again at some point. I'm sure we're looking forward to it at this point in time. Like I said before, you want to make sure that you request Energy Star certified from your contractor, and the higher the SEER value, S-E-E-R value, is the seasonal energy efficiency ratio. It's just similar to the HSPF on the heating side of a heat pump, is a way to measure the efficiency of your cooling system. So Energy Star's minimum is a 14.5 for a SEER. So if you can get anything that's that level or higher, it'll be a more efficient cooling system for your house. I wanted to get a little bit into hot water because we all have hot water and you don't really think about it until it dies, and then you can't take a shower and somebody's probably upset in your house. So there's a few different types of water heaters out there that you might have in your house. There's a standard tank, generally 30 to 50 or 80 gallons. It depends on your basement and how many people live there, how it will size. It's up here, it would be a flue pipe that would go into a chimney. It's typically fueled by natural gas or propane or oil. And this is the most common way to heat water in your house. I recently bought a condo, and so I have a natural gas 30-gallon tank in my basement. You might also have, if a more efficient way to heat your water would be a condensing storage tank. So it looks a little bit funnier because it has this weird thing at the top. It's usually a little bit more technologically advanced, so it will have a little control panel on it, and instead of, it usually doesn't go up a chimney, or if it does go up your chimney, it has a powered fan to make sure that the fumes get up the chimney safely. With standard storage water tanks, they vent up the chimney naturally, and sometimes if the house pressure and other situations all collide, you can have it backdraft into your house. And so the nice thing about condensing storage tanks is you don't have that trouble as much because it will just direct vent out the side of your house, or it'll have a powered fan and move it up your chimney for you. These are definitely not as popular, and they tend to cost more money if you're installing a new one, but they are more efficient and they are a little bit safer if you have that type of concern. You might have a tankless on-demand water heaters. Anybody have one of those in their house? probably. It's usually a rectangular box on the side of your basement wall. These are a very, very efficient way to heat your water. The thing with these tanks is they're constantly storing water and heating it up all the time. And so, I live alone. I don't need my 30-gallon tank to be hot all the time because it's just me. If you live in your house, you have a lot of people living in your house, you're home quite often, it might be another, you might want to have a storage tank for that type of situation. But if you're not there very much, you don't have a lot of people there, a tankless on-demand water heater can work really great. Sometimes, it can work great if you have a lot of people too as well. And it heats up the water instantly. It's typically, you can't get it in oil fired, so you would have to have it be propane or natural gas. So you'd have to have that fuel available for your house. But it's definitely quite an efficient way to heat water in your home, and it's very satisfactory result as well. If you have in your house an electric water heater, this is also, if you have electric, this is the most common. It's an electric storage tank. UI even rents them out to people. If you call and ask, we install them and rent them to you on a monthly basis. There's a heating element down here in the tank, and then there's another upper heating element to kind of keep the water all hot all the time and ready for you. So if you have that tank, a more efficient way to heat water with electricity is through the use of a heat pump water heater, and that is has a similar effect in how it efficiently heats as the heat pumps, the ductless heat pump and geothermal, that type of process. So it extracts heat from the air around in your basement, because usually your basement stays relatively at a decent temperature, unless it's, you have lots of windows and doors that are open all the time to the outside. But usually most basements that are in the ground are pretty constant temperature. So like with the geothermal system, it'll capture that air. It won't have to heat it up quite as much to heat the water up, because you're already getting 50-degree air, so you can keep the water at 50. So it's a much more efficient way to heat water with electricity in your home. And the thing is, they tend to be on the bigger side. They're usually like this tall, and they need to have good air space clearance. So it might not work in everybody's basement. So if you have electric, you can have a plumber come over if you're interested in putting a heat pump in, and they can evaluate and make sure that your basement would be a suitable candidate for that type of system.
Do you know how much you would save with that system versus the regular standard? Is there any kind of data on that?
Yep, it's generally 50%. So if you can put in a heat pump water heater, it's an appropriate location, it's appropriately sized. Like say, you have a 30-gallon standard electric, and then you put in an 80-gallon heat pump water heater, that's not the same. But if you do like replacement, you don't change your use of water in the house, you can get a 50% reduction in the electric cost of water heating.
One nice kind of fringe benefit of that heat pump water heater, it'll dehumidify your basement.
Yes, great
And
point.
you'll use that heat rather than, if you run a dehumidifier, you're not using the heat. You're taking the water vapor out, but you're throwing the heat back into the basement. Here, the heat goes right into your hot water storage tank.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Thank you so much. I forgot about that point. You can do my presentation if you want. You know everything more than me, so.
Well, I have one.
Oh, you have one. Oh, fabulous.
It doesn't look like that, but I
Yeah,
bought
this
it.
is a different. Yeah, there's a couple.
UI had a program in the late 80s, and it didn't go over well, and UI's manager of that department knew this guy who had a warehouse full of these carrier heat pumps, which really looked like a small air conditioner.
Yep.
So you put it in and you connect it to your existing hot water tank. And I still have mine working. Every summer I use it to dry my basement and heat my hot water. And I
perfect.
just shut my boiler off.
Nice. Oh, that's wonderful. Oh, good
So
job.
that works solely on electricity?
Yep.
Yep. Yeah, that's great. So if you have, if you're running a dehumidifier anytime, usually this might be a good alternative for you to kind of get two in one.
Because if you go away for a couple of weeks and don't use any hot water, when you come back, your basement may be a little humid.
Yeah, oh
Doesn't
yeah,
really
because it's
run.
not dehumidifying unless it's running. So that's a good point. So you would probably, if you go on vacation, you'll plug in your regular dehumidifier, and then when you come back, unplug it. That's a good point. So when you're getting a new water heater, again, Energy Star, they rate a lot of water heater equipment, and there's a lot out there that is not Energy Star. And a good amount that is. So if you can ask for it, do. And generally, with most water heating, it's rated in energy factor or EF. So the higher the EF value, the more efficient the unit will be. So I did a little video, I can't play it right now, but if you go on to Energize CT's website or to the YouTube channel, I talk about tankless water heaters and heat pump water heaters for a little bit in the video. It's a great, there's all sorts of great technology out there to improve your water heating. And so we have that for you to look at. So heat pump water heaters, for example, if you go to buy them at like a Home Depot or Lowe's, we have some discounts instantly given to you at the register off the price of the heat pump water heaters. So just make sure you look for this type of sign, or your contractor, your plumber looks for that when they're purchasing the equipment. That
So
means-
what's the approximate price of that unit like that one, let's say, for a typical house?
Yep, I think GE at Lowe's, they have a model, and it would be $599.
So it's $199 if you
No,
have this
$599 after the discount.
Okay.
Yep,
Thank you.
good clarifying, thank you. Yeah, so I think they have a little thing here, like total cost $599, so
Okay, I see.
they try to make it clear. Yeah, it's when the discount had come off, so yeah, good
Okay.
question.
Even though this uses electricity, it's still cheaper, more efficient than a regular storage water heater.
Yes. Yep, it's very similar to my analogy of the electric resistance baseboard versus a ductless heat pump. It's the same situation, just heating water.
But what if you're comparing it to a natural gas hot water heater? How would,
It's if you go back to the flow chart, it's basically the same thing. So it's efficient. I would categorize it in this category, but natural gas, if the price is good, it's lower still.
How current is that chart? 'Cause I'm wondering if that reflects the big drop in oil that we're enjoying right now.
It's not. I haven't.
what's that?
Can you see the number for oil? What is it?
No, this is just-
3278.
That's the price per
1
MMBTU.
million BTUs, 3278. What do you
Yeah.
think?
This hasn't been updated in 2 years, so I don't
Yeah,
think it's.
I'm guessing it's a lot closer than what that chart shows.
That's
Yeah.
we
probably,
were dying 2 years ago.
yeah, that's probably a higher oil price than now.
Yeah, I would assume. That's a good point.
2 years ago, it was $4.97.
So when you're in the market for a new water heater or heating system, it's always a good idea to try to plan ahead. So a typical water heater in your house generally will last about 10 years or so, maybe 15 if you're luckier. Heating systems generally last longer, so they'll last more the 20-25 year range. So if you know you have equipment that's getting towards the end of its useful life, we call it, it's a really good idea to start planning and thinking about replacing it before it actually dies. Because once it dies, you're just scrambling to get anything thrown in to, just to get you through the winter or summer, or, have a hot shower the next day. So it's really good if you know that your equipment's getting towards the end, that you do some research now and line up a contractor now, so that you can have a good relationship with them and know what to do when the time comes to replace it. And Energy Star, they're going to be starting this really big campaign nationwide called Plan Ahead Replacement, so that it's another way of just saying, please think about it before it actually dies. And so when you are thinking about it, the utility companies, we try to get you to put in higher efficiency equipment just because you are going to have it in your house for so many years. It's a shame, you put in a new boiler and you put in an 82 efficient percent boiler instead of a 92, you're going to be stuck with that less efficient equipment for 25 years. And, you've made the investment, you should just do it more efficiently at first, and then you'll be good to go for the next couple decades. And, for a lot of us, I know I personally just feel better knowing monetarily that I'm not spending as much when I pay the bill every month when I have higher efficiency equipment in my house. But it's also a good thing for the environment because you're using less fuel, whatever the fuel might be, electricity, propane, oil. You're using less of that, so you're polluting less. And like I mentioned, they stay in your house for so many years. You just want to do it right, and then you'll be set for a couple decades. So if anybody who doesn't have a contractor, or you're trying to find a new one in your house, there's a couple different resources for you to take advantage of through the utility company. So in the back table, I did bring a listing of HVAC. Does anybody, just to make sure that we're all on the same page, so HVAC stands for heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. So that's the common term in this industry. HVAC installer or plumber. A plumber typically does water heating equipment and boiler equipment, and HVAC is kind of general, but they also tend to do more of the air furnace type systems and central air conditioning systems. So that if you hear those terms, that's what they mean. So I have a listing of professionals on the back table that serve the Woodbridge area. You can also go online and find QIV professionals, and QIV stands for Quality Installation and Verification Program. So these contractors are kind of a step above most, as they have they've gone through training with me to make sure that they understand how to size equipment for your house, because everybody's house is different. We all have different people living there, different insulation levels, different sizes and shapes of the building. So the QIB folks have really gone through training, and they understand how to properly size everything, and they'll put in the best equipment for you. We also have a Find a Professional webpage on the Energize Connecticut website if you just want to find a general contractor. And for those of you who have Southern Connecticut gas, or are thinking about converting because you have gas available on your house, by your house, Southern Connecticut Gas has a listing of approved contractors that do conversions for them. So if you call SCG, they can give you a name as well. So when you find a contractor that you like, they're insured, you get along with them well, you feel comfortable having them service equipment in your house that is, really important, and it's going to be there for years, and it's going to provide heating and cooling that you need to live, and it's just heating and cooling is a big part of the energy use of your house. So you want to make sure you like your contractor and you trust them. And so when you find one that you like, or if you're still shopping around because you need to replace something right now in your house, I always recommend that you get multiple quotes. So if you're replacing a big piece of equipment, I would say shop around, try to find 2 or 3 different companies that you feel comfortable with, and then go with the one that you can afford and that you like the most after. But quotes can vary. So like I had mentioned before, Energy Star rates the higher efficiency equipment and, they have a whole process that they go through to determine if it meets their criteria. There's a lot of other equipment on the market too. So with a lot of different industries, the auto industry and all sorts of different stuff, there's different levels of brands. So there's the junkier, lower efficiency, not very well made, that won't last very long, but it's probably pretty cheap. There's middle grade, there's a bunch of stuff in the middle, and then there's a bunch of stuff on the high end. So, you can have the nice Toyota, and then the nice Lexus, and the nice Beamer, and then the Lamborghinis. There's all sorts of different levels of heating equipment, or just Yugo. I think that was a car that people used to call bad, not very good, or Lemon, whatever bad cars were. There's that in the heating and water heating realm too. So quotes vary. So when you see manufacturers listed out on the invoice or the quote that the contractor might give you, do a little research to see if that model number from that manufacturer has had any problems, if people like it or not. So it's really smart just to do a couple minutes worth of research, because it's going to be in your house for a long time, and it can cost pretty good amount of money to do. So just make sure that you get a couple quotes, get a couple ranges of equipment types, so you can get different price points and figure out where you're most comfortable with. Make sure that they're certified and insured. That's really important. There's a lot of guys out there, and some are probably good, but lots of them aren't, that are kind of, I'll do this, on the side for you. And I, at the utility company, can't say do it or don't install it yourself. I always say, you want to find somebody certified and insured, who's gone through proper HVAC courses and is up to date on their licensure. You can look up licensures online, because they all have to be licensed through the state of Connecticut, and see that their license is up to date or not. It's always a good idea to get an annual service plan. So kind of like changing the oil in your car, you want to just make sure your heating system is checked on a regular basis, and your water heater too. So don't forget about that thing in your basement, because it's very important. So you want to make sure that you have somebody come in on an annual basis and check it for you, clean it, and also change your filters if you have the furnace type heating system. Obtain a trusted contractor now, before your heating system breaks down, so you're not just scrambling for anything that you can get. And make sure that your contractor knows about incentives and financing. So if you are putting in a high efficiency piece of equipment, oftentimes the utility has incentives to help offset the cost of it for you, and there's also great financing programs, so you want to make sure your contractor is up to date. I offer trainings all the time. At 7 a.m. tomorrow morning, I have to be up in South Windsor, and I'm training 30 contractors. So I've trained tons of contractors on the incentives and the financing. So if you have one that doesn't know, I don't know, they obviously probably don't really care about high efficiency, because I do trainings all the time.
I think one of the things I learned was that contractors are sometimes reluctant to offer the best equipment in their bid, because they're bidding against others, and they know that, and they don't want to be priced out. So you'll have to press them to make sure you get the high efficiency equipment that you want.
Yeah, because
I've seen this happen.
That's a really good point, because they're trying to stay in business. They want to win your business. They want to outbid the other ones, but at the cost, they might sacrifice the efficiency of the equipment or the quality, because you could have a 95% furnace, that's really efficient, but there's a couple different options. So there's the less well-made version, and then there's a middle, and then there's higher end ones. So even in a higher efficiency piece of equipment, there might be 3 different levels of quality. So that's a really great point.
You get the incentive. The contractor doesn't get the incentive. So
yeah,
what's his incentive to offer you the best equipment?
Yeah, because it's in your house for 25 years. He's gonna just put it in and leave, and hope maybe you'll have him come back and service it once a year, but you're stuck with it. So we do have incentives for certain heating and water heating equipment out there at these different levels. So if you're in the market to change your air conditioning system now that we're getting into this summertime, we have a $250 mail-in rebate or a $500 mail-in rebate depending upon the HSPF and the SEER level. So that's how I base my rebates off of. So hopefully now you'll know what those mean and can ask your contractor to make sure that you meet the rebate level. The ductless heat pump, same thing. Geothermal, I have a rebate. If you hire a quality installation and verification contractor, they can get you more incentive money. But there's only 16 of them in the state, so there's not a whole lot of them because they've gone that extra step to get specially trained through me. For natural gas boilers and natural gas, oil, and propane furnaces, and with the hot water system. So we have a little bit of a different approach. As I showed you with the heat pump water heater, and you had the great question, the $400 is instantly taken off the price now. So it's the same thing with the boilers and the furnaces and the other water heaters. So
Now you have
it depends.
2 to 750, you have like, is there that's the range of what you can get, or?
Yeah, so oil and propane furnaces are $200 instant discount. Natural gas furnace is $600 and a natural gas boiler is $750. I guess I probably could have spelled it out more, but I thought the slide was really wordy.
Yeah, well, so you're getting less of an incentive for propane than natural gas.
Yeah, so that's a really good point. So the money comes, like I mentioned in the beginning, if you flip over your electric bill, you see how all the charges are broken out. You flip over the natural gas bill. So the money for these incentives comes from electric people and natural gas people. So on the natural gas side, I can afford to pay $750 for a boiler and $600 for a furnace. But since I don't collect money from propane bills and from oil bills, I can't, the legislator in the state don't let me incentivize them at the same level. So I can give some money from the electric pool of money, but that's why it's less money.
Do you want me to send you my oil bills?
No, I wish, but I can't.
I don't have a natural gas option, so I'm either oil or propane.
Yeah.
And I already have propane now, but I'm gonna be redoing everything in my house, so
Oh, wow.
I'm gonna, gotta come up with some type of specifications so I can make a bid.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's great. So you're gonna say you want this and have people bid on it.
Yeah.
Awesome. So the installers should know about these programs because I train them all the time. So definitely make sure that you ask your installer about them. We do also have a couple different ways that you can finance the replacement project in your house. This one up here is for UI customers. It's for right now, I think until May 31st, it's a 0% interest loan that you pay back on your electric bill, and it's broken out, and the term of the loan will be anywhere from 3 to 10 years. It just depends on how efficient of a system you're putting in versus how inefficient your old system was. So there's a really great website on it that you can check out, and you can apply online and make sure that your contractor's on that list. And
So this is for any kind of Energy Star
heating
gizmo?
system.
Oh, just heating?
Just heating, that's a really great question. Yeah, so this is called the heating loan. It's specific for heating equipment.
So would that include a hot water system or just the heating?
It would include hot water so on the boiler slide that I showed earlier, sometimes there's a good amount of boilers that provide heat to the house and in the same unit provide water
That's what I
heating.
have, yes.
Yeah, so it's called a combination boiler, so those can be financed on it. But if
I
it's a
have
separate
that-
tank,
Kind
they
of
can't.
a related but separate question. So I have that unit you just described, a combination would it make any sense for me to consider a heat pump water heater? Probably not, right?
Only if you want to dry your basement in the summer, because that's exactly what I have, what you just described.
And you pay less for your hot water because you need to use the boiler for that purpose?
Well, I shut the boiler off in the summer and I run the heat pump. And it dries my basement, provides all my hot water.
Yeah, that's okay, that's a good point. You shut the boiler off completely because you don't need any heat from it, okay?
Yeah, and when it gets a little bit like probably the end of the month, I won't shut the boiler off yet, but then I'll start that heat pump and I won't be burning any oil to heat my domestic hot water from now and from the end of May until, the end of April until maybe November.
So aside from your dehumidification, you're happy that you did that on money saving as well?
Yeah, when oil got really expensive, I started
I remember that.
stretching the season,
Yeah.
making it longer and longer when I
Thanks.
use the heat pump.
If somebody has a oil furnace that needs to be replaced today, what would you recommend going with? What would be cost efficiency wise make most practical sense?
So I can't say what brand because there's so many different brands and there's so many different models.
Well, not brand, but I mean whether you should go with geothermal or a heat
Oh.
pump, or what should you go with? Natural gas is not an option in Woodbridge, so it's one of the others. Would you recommend going with geothermal or heat pump rather than a new oil furnace?
Oil, the thing with oil is on the furnace side, Energy Star is about 85% efficient, and you can't really get too much greater than that from oil. When propane and natural gas, you can get up into the 98%, but on the oil side, you can't. It can kind of go either way. So you really want to weigh your budget versus, what options there are. So you could maybe do a ductless heat pump type setup in your house and get a quote for that, because that would be pretty efficient. You could look at getting a quote for geothermal as well, since you could utilize the ductwork that you already have in place. And then, you can get a quote for the oil and see what that would cost to replace it. And it really just depends on budget, and that's most of the time what people use for their determining factor, but
Can I just throw in an idea for this fella? I think that you have to look at how long you think you're gonna be in that same house, because the more you pay for the greater efficiency, the longer it's gonna take for you to
How
pay
do they
back.
generally compare cost-wise, just to get an idea?
It really just depends on your house. I can give like a wide range. So ductless heat pumps can cost anywhere from $5,000 to $15,000 generally. Oil can be 5 to 10 generally. Geothermal is usually 30 to 50, but it's the most efficient. So it really, it's so many different factors.
The geothermals are more expensive.
Hence, if you're gonna
Yeah,
be in the house
that's
for
just
30 more
general.
years, now, that's probably a
Yeah.
better bet for you.
A lot of people who are building new
2
houses
years,
do
it's not gonna, unless you can sell that to the next buyer.
have it appraised at a higher value because you
Good
put in
point.
the great system. You could do that, get an appraiser who will look at it that way. So it really, I just recommend getting a couple different options and then just go from there. But it's hard, with the cost of fuel, it fluctuates, because a couple years ago, oil was up here, and then, electricity, and so it's really hard.
Your approved contractor, is this your list, or is there a bigger list of?
There's a much bigger list for approved contractors for this program. So if you go to the website, they have all of them on there, so there's hundreds.
Okay, do you have to buy all your equipment through them, or can you buy the equipment separate and use your approved contractor for installation?
That I have never been asked, actually, so I don't know.
Well, there's
That-
a lot of markup in contractors will do on your equipment.
Yeah, so that would be a question for the people that manage this program. They're called AFC First. They would have to determine that because there's certain paperwork that they have to see in order to approve the loan. So I don't know if they would accept two different pieces or not. So that would be, if you go on the website, they have a telephone number like right at the top right hand corner, and they can answer that for you. I've never been asked that. That's a good one.
Well, I've done almost most of the work myself already, so.
Oh, okay, yeah. Well, that's good. You're handy, and then you just have them install it for you. Yeah, I can't give a good answer for that. So this is the type of equipment that can get financed on that loan product. A bunch of different types: oil furnaces, boilers. Then there's also, so one of the other partners that the utilities work with is CEPIA, or also called the Green Bank. They have a financing tool that would, for water heating and cooling equipment, like you mentioned earlier, that can all go on to the Smart E loan. And they have a bit of a higher rate, and it just depends on what you're looking to finance. So if you go onto that website, you can learn more about that product. And then also, if you have, in the very beginning of my presentation, now I'm at the end, at the beginning, I mentioned having a home energy assessment. When you have that done, the home energy assessment folks are very fluent in all of the incentives that I talked about on the heating and cooling side, as well as other things like insulation, window incentives, and there's a special financing tool for home energy solutions customers to take advantage of too, for if you need to do more work in your house, like the windows and the insulation and the water heater and furnace. You can bundle all of that together through having the home energy assessment first. So I always recommend that that's kind of where you start, and then find a good contractor after that, because the home energy assessment can kind of figure out where your heating equipment is, as well as other stuff in your house, and then you can start thinking if you need to do planned replacement and find a contractor to work with going forward.
I do the energy assessments, yeah. So, I could put in a little plug for doing energy assessments. I mean, not only are you want high efficiency heating equipment so that you're producing less heat or less cooling, you also want your house to lose less heating and cooling. And so that's where we come in. We look at where are the drafts in the house, and it's all covered by the program, by that $99 copay. We'll find where the drafts are and seal them up for you. And also we're an insulation contractor as well. So and we have special rates for Woodbridge because we are a local Woodbridge contractor. So the travel is virtually nil for us. If you're losing heat through your attic or through your walls because you have insufficient insulation, we can also help you out with that. And that would make it so that whatever heating and cooling equipment you buy, it's not having to work as hard, potentially extending the life of the system that you purchase. So if you need an energy assessment, we also change out light bulbs, do shower heads, aerators, seal up your ductwork, all kinds of good stuff. So see me about it. I have cards in my pocket. And
who do you actually work for?
New England Conservation Services. So we're a contractor for United Illuminating.
Okay, thank you.
Because it was New England Conservation. Who's the other vendor in
New England Smart Energy.
New England Smart Energy? Okay, yeah. So they aren't here tonight. So if you definitely talk to them.
So
if you
they're
want to
your
have this.
competitor? Or they're
Friendly competitor. We went in together on this
Nice.
kind of a deal.
Yeah, so Woodbridge is a really wonderful town, and they want residents to find ways to save energy and save money. So they looked to have two contractors service the folks in the town.
Yeah, they're a good company. They use the exact same thing.
Thank you.
Any particular words of interest or wisdom on, in terms of controls, in terms of controls for energy saving and heating and cooling?
Yeah, unfortunately, we at the utility, we haven't gotten into the control realm yet in terms of offering incentives.
So none of your programs address any of that?
Not specifically for control controls. We're running a pilot right now to test how much energy the smart thermostats. There's thermostats that, there's a couple different ranges of thermostats. There's the one that's kind of like a dial, and you just kind of set it at 70, and you can't program it or anything. Then there's a programmable one where you can tell it to come on and off at certain times of the day, on certain days of the week. And now they have more like smart thermostats that can kind of measure your occupancy behaviors in the house. They can connect to your smartphone through an app, and you can like manually turn things on and off from your phone. So we're doing a pilot right now to test how much energy savings is actually realized using the smart thermostat way of behavior in a house. So I don't have any information on that yet, because we just started that pilot last year, and it's 2 years long. So after that, hopefully we'll get some good data and can offer the program. But a lot of the contractors, when you're putting in a new heating system, you also need to have a way to control it. So a lot of the good ones that are up on their licensure and up on their training, they are also familiar with this newer control mechanism for their house. So they would be able to have a good conversation about that. If you have any general questions, if you own a business in either UI or CLMP or Eversource territory, we have great programs for businesses too. You can always call this telephone number or go online and learn about what's out there on the residential side and the commercial side.
I must have missed it. If you want to have the energy audit done at your house, you have to go online to request this, or is this?
Well, you can talk to
I
me
know
now.
he's here. The other fellow is not, so I don't have
yep.
his numbers. Was that in the handout at all?
No, I don't have that on the handout. If you call this telephone number,
The 877 wise use?
Yep, yeah, you'll say, I'm in the town of Woodbridge, I would like to have an energy assessment, and they would hook you up. Do you have a question?
Yes. If I spec out the equipment from my house, and I price the equipment, can I call somewhere and find out how much of a rebate I'll actually get on that piece of equipment?
You can go online or, call me. I get like 50 phone calls a day, so I don't always respond.
But
that
generally,
day,
a propane furnace is $200.
Yes.
But I'm looking at the AC unit that I'm going to be putting in with it.
Yeah, so I actually, in my car, I apologize I didn't bring it in. I have the AC rebate form if you wanted me to give it to you.
Okay.
Or if you go on to this website, this one links you right here directly to the heating page, and we have like a whole table that spells out all of the different rebates on this direct link for heating equipment. But I can give you the AC form. It's in my car.
Part, I gotta find out rebates on insulation and what other things also.
Yes.
I missed the last time
Oh, okay.
on the insulation.
Yeah, I wasn't here for it either, so I don't know what they all talked about. But are you, because you're not building a new house, are you doing like a gut?
No, I have a house 1927. It was a crawl space underneath.
Yep.
I excavated underneath the house to make a new utility room underneath the whole house.
Okay. Yep.
So this has been a 2-year project.
Wow. That's great. That'll be good. Sounds like you're getting done. Closer to done.
I'm getting there.
It's awesome.
So I've been living off the wood stove for the last 10 years, pretty much.
Wow. Well, that's
I'm
good.
getting tired of burning.
Wood is nice. Yeah, but yeah, that's a lot of work, so I'm sure. Wow. Awesome. Yeah, I can give you the form. Anybody else have any questions?
Thank you very much.
Thank